Hello, I'm Bud McCord. I'm here in Brazil, South America. It's September 11th, 2020. And today we're going to think with Jesus about mercy. We're going to talk about whether or not we have the resource called mercy available to us as we try to live an authentic life, the life of a true disciple. Do I have a lack of mercy? How should I look at my resources when it comes to this important part of loving other people, the part of showing mercy? I'm going to read the devotional for today, so we'll all be thinking together. But our real goal is to take these thoughts and you think with Jesus and I will think with Jesus. I'm absolutely convinced that we as believers need to become accustomed to thinking with Jesus and taking every thought captive to him so we come to the right conclusions about him, about our reality, about the world in which we live. So the question of today's devotional is mercy lacking? Love is a treasure that needs to be shared. Love requires someone to receive and someone willing to share. This is the way love wins the world and unites people. This is the blessed life of Jesus' disciples. Being blessed means we are enabled to share the resources received from God, like Jesus is sharing divine resources for us and in us. Jesus is the source of love and mercy from God in you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You are freely receiving mercy from God at this moment. In light of this, you need to freely share this blessing called mercy. Having Jesus, you have perfect conditions to receive and share the mercy from God. Never think that you lack mercy. To have Jesus is to have mercy. One of the reasons we do not show mercy is because we are afraid that the person to whom we show mercy will continue sinning against us, or that the person will abuse the blessing of our mercy. We are afraid that our mercy resource will run out. This fear does not come from Jesus. Jesus continuously shows us his mercy despite our constant weaknesses and sins. In Jesus, there is never a lack of mercy. He now abides in you. It is not easy to get used to the idea that we are blessed with enough resources so that we can have no fear of forgiving time after time. It is not easy to believe that there will not be a lack of resources to keep a relationship alive despite the weaknesses and the sins of others. It only gets easier when we focus on the perfection and abundance coming to us from Jesus. Do not be afraid that you will lack mercy. Share mercy, and you will receive mercy from the perfect life of Jesus in you. You might want to say this: I'm blessed. I have the mercy from God forever. Jesus is the source of all mercy that I need to receive and to share. These thoughts I wrote years ago as I was struggling through this idea of whether or not the authentic living of a Christian life is a mixture of my resources with God's resources, or whether or not the resources of God in Christ are the only source from which I can live the Christian life. I came to the conclusion, after reading the words of Jesus, the first conclusion is Jesus said, without me, you can do nothing. But then there's a parallel conclusion where the Apostle Paul says, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And then in the metaphor of the vine and the branch, it became clear to me that what God the Father, the vine dresser, wants is a particular kind of fruit. And among the fruit that he wants is love, joy, peace, long-suffering. And in the middle of all of that, there is mercy. And so there is a proper use of the mercy that we have access to in Jesus. So we receive the mercy, we rejoice in the mercy, and then we release the mercy. We breathe it in, so to speak, like we talked about yesterday, and then we breathe it out. And we breathe it in and we breathe it out. Just like the oxygen we breathe, which we did not produce and we do not sustain. We live from something we did not create, something we did not sustain, which is this oxygen that gives us life. And mercy is kind of like that. We take the mercy into ourselves. We rejoice that mercy exists. It gives us the energy and the will to give that mercy away. It's an ecosystem that we live. Now, I think the best way to understand the proper use of mercy, because a lot of things that we call mercy in reality is not properly used. We get really confused with the idea of mercy. So I want to take you straight to an example of the perfect use of mercy. It's in John chapter 8, beginning in verse 1, where Jesus is in the temple teaching, and the doctors of the law and the Pharisees, the religious leaders, bring a woman that they have caught in the act of adultery, and they want to make a spectacle out of her failure and her sin, and they want to embarrass Jesus. So their motives are totally wrong. But then Jesus, in the middle of this, he shows mercy, and it's a perfect picture of how mercy is supposed to be used. I want to read the passage to you. As I'm reading it to you, please pay exactly attention to everything Jesus does, everything he says, and everything he doesn't say, and everything that he did not do. But Jesus went to the Mount of Olives. Now early in the morning, he came again into the temple, and all the people came to him, and he sat down and taught them. Then the scribes and the Pharisees brought to him a woman caught in adultery, and when they had set her in the midst, they said to him, "Teacher, this woman was caught in adultery in the very act. Now Moses in the law commanded us that such should be stoned. But what do you say?" This they said, testing him, that they might have something of which to accuse him. But Jesus stooped down and wrote in the ground with his finger, as though he did not hear. And when they continued asking him, he raised himself up and said to them, "He who is without sin among you, let him throw a stone at her first." Again he stooped down and wrote on the ground. Then those who heard it, being convicted by their conscience, went out one by one, beginning with the oldest even to the last, and Jesus was left alone, and the woman standing in the midst. When Jesus had raised himself up and he saw no one but the woman, he said to her, "Woman, where are those accusers of yours? Has no one condemned you?" She said, "No one, Lord." And Jesus said to her, "Neither do I condemn you. Go and sin no more." Then Jesus spoke to them again, saying, "I am the light of the world. He who follows me shall not walk in darkness, but have the light of life." If you want to understand the proper use of mercy, this, I think, is an incredible place for you to study mercy for your use in your own life. You can also study any other part of the life of Jesus, the crucifixion, and look for mercy as well. Now, here's a few things that I saw I want to share with you. You can think together with Jesus about this. So when Jesus sees this crowd of people with stones in their hands, what is he seeing? He's seeing a group of people who feel that they have the authority and the moral ability and the spiritual authority to add the weight of their opinion onto the sin of this woman. In other words, they feel justified in ending her life so that God would be pleased with that result. The problem is that they were disqualified from really doing what they wanted to do. They were disqualified by the fact that they really were not all that different from the woman. We're all sinners. The Bible makes that clear. Now, what's interesting is when Jesus confronted them, and remember, there was a crowd watching all of this. So you've got Jesus, the woman, the accusers, and the crowd is there the whole time. And so when Jesus says, "He that's without sin among you, let him cast the first stone," imagine these leaders, if they cast the stone, then they're just asking for the multitude to spend the rest of their lives waiting for them to sin. So they figured this out really quickly. And the older people figured it out more quickly until the younger ones finally had to leave too. Now Jesus is alone with a woman. Now here's where the mercy is. First of all, Jesus had mercy on the people that were about to kill this woman, because if they did that, the way they were doing it would not have been approved by God. They would have brought their own condemnation on themselves by condemning. The second thing that's really interesting is Jesus says, "Woman, where are your accusers?" So her life already was blessed by Jesus because he now has removed the outside interference into what she has done, but she's still got to live with herself. And he says, "Where are your accusers?" She said, "They're all gone. So there's nobody here to accuse you." Now she's got to deal directly with Jesus. And he says, I don't condemn you either. Boy, what a weight must have fallen off of her mind and her shoulders. And then he says this to you, I don't condemn you either. Now, go. Think with me real now, what does it mean for her to go? Back home? To her husband? To her community? To her children? What are we hearing Jesus do here when he says go? He's saying, I can't protect you from the consequences of your behavior. What I can do is not add the weight of my condemnation to what you've done. So I'm not going to condemn you. But I'm going to give you a challenge. And he says, go back into your reality and sin no more. That's mercy. Mercy is not saying that something bad did not happen. Mercy is not saying, it's okay, everybody makes mistakes. It's not that. There's something we need to understand in discipleship that I didn't understand for many years. When a person sins, there is a consequence happening immediately when we participate in sin. Something about our humanity dies. Something about our good dreams die. There's no such thing as escaping the consequences of sin. The universe seems to be set up in such a way that righteousness is always supported and unrighteousness is always with no support. And it's as if you're inviting something into your life like a sickness that only takes away, it steals and it robs and it kills. So when we are practicing mercy like Jesus practiced, what are we doing? First of all, we're trying to allow the person to come to grips with their sin without the interference of other people who are also sinners and giving all their opinions. Because really I don't think it helps at all. My experience watching people condemn other people has not been a redemptive activity. I've never seen that be redemptive. What I have seen be redemptive as to say to somebody, I'm not throwing any rocks at you because I'm not going to add to the weight of what you're already bearing. You are bearing a weight. You got to go back home. You have to face the reality of your husband, your children, your community. You have enough to deal with. But I am going to give you a challenge. Stop sinning. I see that's a question. It's a statement, but it's also a question. Stop. And she should say, well, Lord, how do I do that? And I think he would have said to her, come to me, all who are burdened and tired, and I will give you rest. That's mercy. Now I want to end. I know I've gone a little bit longer, but I just want to get this in your mind so you can think about it with Jesus. If you knew that someone you repeatedly forgive and someone that you continuously show mercy, at the very last second of their life in this world, they received Jesus into their life. And you knew that they may have gotten in by the skin of their teeth, so to speak, but they did come to Jesus. Would you show mercy if you knew that? That was the outcome? Well, let me say this to you. You don't know that. But there is a possibility that the fact that you showed mercy could be the time that they really heard it and understood it and believed it, and they turned back to God. Wouldn't that be great? Perhaps that's why there are certain people in your life that you offer mercy to over and over again, because you're really saying to them, leave the life of sin, leave the life of sin. There's a better way to live, there's a better way to live. And when you show mercy, you're not really the one who produces the mercy, you receive it from Jesus and you release it. I think we should be using mercy all the time. I'm talking to myself right now. Pray for me that I will use mercy correctly, and I'll pray for you that you will use mercy correctly also. God bless you. Have a great day.